interesting one. Will there be farming on Mars someday? This brings to mind the novel and the film The Martian.
Yes.
With what's the botanist's name? Oh, it's played by Matt Damon in the film, anyway. But he's a botanist, and he gets left behind on Mars, and he has to survive. And he survives by growing potatoes in Martian soil, fertilizing it with human waste. But yeah, so that's interesting. It's an interesting
Elon Musk
topic.
is trying to do that, isn't he?
Yeah, I think
Nuking
so.
the poles or whatever, and
that would bring up another topic: is trophism. Just why do plants grow up? And one of the factors is gravity. And so I've got colleagues that were doing research on zero gravity plants because one of the problems is getting water and water movement and irrigating. And so, yeah, that would be an interesting topic.
I'd hate to be in charge of watering the plants in Mars.
Yeah, I have to admit I'm not convinced of the colonization of Mars idea in general. As in, I'm not convinced that it's ever going to happen. But
here's my prediction: is that the Lord will return before we ever get anywhere close to thinking about that.
Yeah, we've messed this world up enough. Yeah, no, I'm not convinced. But anyway, it'll be interesting. It's interesting thinking about the
Mars bars.
Yeah.
Well, it gets you to think what is necessary for plants to grow, and that's actually good evidence for creation because it's not. You have to take into account the atmosphere, the soil, the water, even the gravity. I've never thought of that before, Glenn. That's really important.
Temperature.
And the temperature.
And the minerals in the soil as well.
And also, there's certain plants. I've tried growing semi-exotic plants in the UK before, right? Things like, pineapples, bananas, stuff like that. And even in greenhouses, even in heated greenhouses, they just don't grow very well because the daylight hours are not long enough.
Yes.
Well, if we're going to struggle growing bananas in England, goodness knows what it'll be like trying to do it on Mars. Even with heated greenhouses, it's just not enough sunlight.
It's a thing about the research. Their research were on these airplanes, and you have to set up the experiment so that then the plane takes a nosedive and they simulate zero gravity, and they quickly have to do their experiment while they're falling and floating.
It's also interesting as well because
not for me.
I was just thinking it sort of brings up the concept of the Goldilocks zone, doesn't it? How we are literally perfectly placed in terms of distance away from the sun for life to be able to thrive and exist and to become self-sufficient. You've got the the concept of Mother Nature, but the concept of words are escaping me, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And
not too hot, not too cold,
not too hot, not too cold. You've got the right amount of atmosphere, right amount of oxygen. It's all perfect for life. But then, obviously, if you're going away to Mars, you've got less sunlight. You don't know necessarily what the soil conditions are going to be. Are we going to have to artificially put in minerals and fertilizer and things like that? A whole bunch of things, as well as the gravity. I didn't even think of that either. And then if we take one step closer to the sun, the gravity issue would become probably even worse because you don't know. I mean, we don't know because we haven't been there and tried it and tested it. But at the same time, we don't really need to go because we know that things are going to be so vastly different that it just won't thrive.
I think what is the motivation for it? Is it because people are so worried about their future on this planet that we need to start looking at another planet to colonize and grow things on? I think it comes down to your concerns about the future, and as believers, we don't need to worry about that. We know we've got a Lord that has got the future in His hand.
It's also as well it's wanting to become like God in a way. where they are basically going to be going to Mars and essentially creating a life-sustaining planet from a non-life-sustaining planet to become like God in Genesis when he created plants and sea reptiles, animals, humans, birds, insects, bacteria, the cell, DNA, all of that. The complexity. It's irreducible complexity, and it just all goes so well together. And yet,
the more we study it, the more it's just clear it took a genius beyond a genius to design all these various living organisms, and then they all have to function together and work together as an ecosystem. And it's a picture of how much God loves us, because he could have created it all very simple, very bland, and all one color and all one style and one design. But the variability in all of this intricate design is just mind-boggling.
Yes.
And then picture this. We're actually aliens on a foreign planet on this earth, because our citizenship is in heaven.
True. Yes, I tend to agree with Craig's point about I think the Lord will come before we've had any chance to try and grow plants seriously on Mars. And anyway, what would be the point? We're meant to live on this earth. It was created for us. They have tried to grow plants on the International Space Station, and I think they have partly succeeded by growing them in containers. And I don't know whether that sort of controls the movement of water and nutrients or whatever, but it strikes me as being extremely contrived. Much rather grow plants down here.